What's up, everyone? As an EV owner, it has seemed to be helpful to give some context to some of these crazy media stories that have been coming out. More recently, the dead robot story. And so we're going to watch that together, and I'm going to give some context to hopefully help some people out on what the true and the fake information is. So here we go.
Coal is also causing some big-time headaches for Chicago area owners of electric vehicles.
Yes, I never thought we'd say this, but it's true. As Dane Placco reports, the low temperatures have caused some headaches for owners looking to charge their cars.
So just first and foremost, what I'll tell you is that the vast majority, just even from the screenshot of people that flood the superchargers, are oftentimes Uber drivers as well as people that live in apartments because they don't have any place to charge their Tesla and or EV. And what I'll tell you right off the bat is if you're someone that has been considering an EV and you live in an apartment and you do not have a place to regularly plug in, this could be very problematic, not just in wintertime, but on the daily basis, because you might think it's not all that bothersome to go and charge every couple days at a supercharger, but really it is a very inconvenient. Although EVs charge quickly, 15 minutes or so, it still is going to be a very big inconvenience. So I just wanted to throw that in there before we go ahead and fully get into it.
Electric cars may be the way of the future, but it's clear there are some problems when it comes to charging them in Chicago's deep freeze.
Oh, we got a bunch of dead robots out here.
Dead robots. Dead Teslas packed the parking lot at this Tesla supercharging station in Oak Brook, a scene mirrored in other supercharging stations around the Chicago area.
Man, this is crazy. It's a disaster, seriously.
With temperatures falling into the negative double digits, these charging ports have stopped charging, leaving many Tesla owners stranded here in long lines.
Okay, so let's go ahead and pause real quick because they keep talking about the deep freeze, and that's really the core component of what's going on here. Is that EVs in general actually do fairly okay. I'm not going to say they're amazing, but they do okay in cold weather. But that does not apply when you start getting into the negative digits, and so down to freezing, so 32 degrees. You could even, get down to 2 degrees, 0, whatever. But when you start getting into that negative territory, that's when the batteries are really going to have a hard time. And so one of the core things that I'm assuming is happening here is the Teslas do require heat within the battery in order to accept a charge. And so what a lot of EV owners don't know, because honestly, you don't have to really think about it pretty much ever, but you have to be really conscious in the cold weather like this, is for EVs, you do have to precondition the battery in some instances so that it can be at peak performance to accept a full-on charge. Whenever you plug something into the navigation system of a Tesla, for example, it will precondition the battery if it is not at the appropriate temperature or if it will not be at the appropriate temperature by the time you get there. So you normally don't have to think about that. But specifically whenever you are in the negative degree temperature, it is something you're going to have to be keenly aware of, and you're going to actually have to take action on in order to make sure that your battery is properly warmed up. The other issue that takes place is whenever you are sitting in line waiting to charge, specifically in negative temperatures, depending on how long you're having to wait, it is possible that your battery is then freezing up again and not actually in that preconditioned state. So we'll go ahead and get back to
Sunday.
Nothing, no juice. It's still on 0%. And this is like 3 hours this morning being out here after being out here 8 hours yesterday.
Has it been charging?
No, not at all.
So another thing is he mentioned he's been charging there, I think he said for an hour at 0%. That goes back to that preconditioned battery side of things. A lot of the Teslas that are sold are base level Model 3s, which means they only have one motor. And there are a couple ways that you can pull heat to the battery, one of which is your motors. If you have a single motor, you've only got one heat source plus the heat pump. That is one of the Tesla innovations. But if you have a dual motor, then now you've got two heat sources plus the heat pump that can give some aid to the battery. And so in these extremely cold conditions, especially with the wind whipping and all that kind of stuff, it is going to make it somewhat difficult for these vehicles to properly heat up, to accept the charge. It will eventually get there, but it's definitely going to be a slow burn. Also, I should go ahead and mention, for most people, the reason that this is not an issue And I say most people that live in a house and or have a place that they plug in on a nightly basis, is whenever you plug in an EV, Tesla or not, you have the ability to precondition the battery in general. So what that means is that for me personally, every single morning on my drive into work, my car will precondition at 6:30 in the morning, so that by the time I get into it, the battery is at peak performance, and that applies also in the cold weather. So even if I were to plug in outside and have my level 2 charger, which we can talk about that another day, but even if I were to plug in outside in the snowy conditions, in the 30-degree weather, my car, because it's plugged in, would still be at the perfect condition. And when I got in the vehicle, it would be at peak performance. It would have no issues in accepting a charge. Of course, it wouldn't need to because it had just been plugged in overnight. But that is really what we're seeing here, is these are people that are unable to charge. And normally it's not even an issue whenever you're driving, because obviously your battery is being heated as you're driving. But for some of these people, when they're getting to these superchargers, yeah, they may have just been driving, but now they may have to wait for a couple hours, and that's enough time for your battery, especially in these negative, ultra negative conditions, to struggle again in maintaining heat. And so that's what we're seeing.
Working
At all. It's just frozen, and so I'm now getting it towed to the Tesla service center because that's my only option at this point.
Adding to their frustration, they say, is that they're getting no help when they call Tesla for assistance.
No response from Tesla. We have been suffering since yesterday afternoon.
These are unusually cold temperatures, but do you find this acceptable?
No, not at all. Not really. I think it's less on the actual vehicle and more on the infrastructure.
Tesla has not responded to our emails for comment, but an automobile
expert. Just because he mentioned it, it's less than the Tesla, more on the infrastructure. I do agree that there could be some more infrastructure for sure. Again, especially whenever you have EVs gaining popularity in dense cities where people don't have the ability to plug in. We do need more places that we can plug in, whether it be in office complexes, apartment complexes, that type of thing. But in terms of the Tesla service center, I'll also say not a good excuse. You know, my experience with Tesla service has actually been good. We have one service center here in my city, and fortunately, Tesla's, I guess, growth has not got to the point where I'm having to wait months in order to have my Tesla looked at if I need it. I have had instances where I've had to wait for about a week in order to get into the shop. But I'll tell you that that is something that Tesla is definitely going to have to address in the near future. I can guarantee that they were not prepared and or capable of the volume that was coming in specifically on this situation in Chicago. They just simply don't have enough service technicians. They do not have the manpower, as they heavily rely on their mobile units. And so in order to get all of these Teslas in, and I'm assuming just probably give them the ability to heat up that battery and plug back in, is just not something they're going to be capable of. That was the end of the actual news article itself. The anchor was actually just about to say that Tesla recommends that you precondition your battery. Again, it's one of those things where Teslas do work very well, but it should be a warning to anyone that lives in those extreme conditions. I live in Florida. I will literally never have to deal with that, and it will never be a concern for me. Fortunately, for a good portion of the country, those extreme negative temperatures and extreme dense populations are also not going to be a thing. Now, obviously, places like New York, certainly they're going to have to figure out something for some pretty good charging infrastructure if they are going to continue the push for EVs. But anyway, I hope that video has been helpful for you. I'm going to continue. Not always. This channel actually is focused on giving information about used Teslas specifically right now, and hopefully this gives some context to anyone who doesn't have an EV, that yes, EVs can be fun, but this is a downside of having an EV, specifically in those extreme negative temperatures. It is not something that is going to be a ton of fun, specifically if you don't have a place that you can plug in overnight and in the mornings and things whenever you park it. For those of you that do live in those types of temperatures, I'm sure that anyone will put in the comments down below if you live in either that area or specifically in that type of temperature, but you do have a place, whether it be a garage or you have a house that you park your car outside and you plug in every single night. I'm sure in all of those instances they can share down below if they've had good or bad experiences. But no doubt EVs, in terms of cold temperatures like that, you're going to miss out on some range. Certainly, you're going to miss out on a heavy portion of range, and you're also going to have some troubles there. So thanks for watching. Consider subscribing, consider liking if this was helpful for you to get that context, and I'll let you guys get back to it. Thanks.